The pivot principle. Why change is your greatest ally? I want to tell you about someone who's been quietly shifting the ground beneath our feet in the most beautiful way. CaTyra Polland. If you haven't heard that name yet, you will. CaTyra has dedicated their career to something that sounds simple on paper, but is revolutionary in practice, empowering Black professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs to stop apologizing for their evolution. They've built a movement around the idea that pivoting isn't a dirty word, that changing direction isn't failure, that the ground shifting beneath your feet isn't chaos, it's growth. And when I sat down with them for the Pink Parachute Diaries podcast, they said something that stopped me cold. Change is the only constant in life. Pivoting is inevitable. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like something you'd see on a motivational poster next to a sunset and a silhouette of someone climbing a mountain. But here's the thing, when CaTyra said it, it didn't feel like a platitude. It felt like permission to stop gripping the steering wheel of a career that stopped making sense three exits ago. Permission to admit that the plan you had at 22 might not fit the person you became at 35. Permission to pivot without the crushing weight of shame, without the voice in your head whispering that you're a quitter, that you're not strong enough, that you're letting everyone down. And for Black women, especially, that permission feels like oxygen in a room that's been airless for too long because we've been taught to hold on, to endure, to make it work even when it's breaking us. We've been handed pink slips while watching mediocrity float up the ladder with golden parachutes. We've been told to be twice as good for half the recognition, to smile through the microaggressions, to shrink ourselves into shapes that make other people comfortable. So, the idea that we can pivot, that we can change direction without it being proof we weren't good enough. That's not just career advice, that's a revolution wrapped in a whisper. CaTyra's message is built on three pillars, three truths that I need you to carry with you long after this talk ends. First, embrace pivots as opportunities, not setbacks. Change builds resilience. Second, build your personal brand amid shifts. Use platforms like LinkedIn to turn your expertise into authority. And third, seek community and mentorship to navigate uncertainty with confidence. These aren't abstract concepts, they're survival tools. They're the difference between drowning in change and learning to surf it with style. Let me show you what this looks like when it's lived, not just theorized. Let me tell you about Morgan J. Ingram. Morgan started out as a sales development rep, grinding through cold calls like the rest of us who've been there. You know the drill. Dial the phone, get rejected, dial again, question every life choice that led you to this moment. Repeat. Traditional sales tactics were stalling out. The old playbook, the one that worked for the generation before us, was gathering dust. And Morgan could have stayed stuck, could have kept dialing for dollars, hoping the universe would eventually reward their persistence. But instead, they did something that felt small at the time, but turned out to be seismic. They started sharing sales insights on LinkedIn, just posting what they were learning, what was working, what wasn't. No fancy strategy at first, no viral ambitions, just showing up consistently with value, with honesty, with the kind of transparency that makes people lean in because it feels real. And here's where it gets good. Morgan didn't just build a following, they built a movement. They earned LinkedIn's top sales voice recognition four times. Four times they founded AMP Creative, an agency that's generated over $6 million in pipeline for clients like HubSpot and Slack. $6 million from someone who started by experimenting with LinkedIn posts in 2016 because their sales role felt like a treadmill going nowhere. Morgan now has over 169,000 followers. 169,000 people who tune in because Morgan proved that when you pivot toward your strengths and share your journey publicly, you don't just change your own life, you change the game for everyone watching. They transformed how B2B executives think about thought leadership. They showed us that authority isn't something you're born with, it's something you build, one honest post at a time, one pivot at a time. Now, let me introduce you to Lachey Lewis. Lachey spent a decade in house at SaaS companies. A decade, that's stability, that's a 401k and health insurance, and knowing what your Tuesdays look like for the next 5 years. For a lot of us, that's the dream, right? The safety net we've been told to chase since we were old enough to understand what a mortgage is. But Lachey recognized something shifting, both in the industry and in themselves. They saw the rise of personal branding, the way expertise was becoming currency in a new economy. And they made a choice that terrifies most of us. They left. In 2023, Lachey founded Authority Plug, a consultancy focused on helping brands build content authority. Now, let's be real for a second. Leaving a stable corporate job to start your own thing, that's not a pivot. That's a leap off a cliff, hoping you remembered to pack a parachute. But Lachey did it. And not only did they do it, they thrived. They've built a consultancy with over 12,000 followers on LinkedIn. They're empowering B2B brands. And more importantly, they're showing Black women that the entrepreneurial path isn't just for people with trust funds and safety nets. Lachey turned their skills into a scalable business and proved that sometimes the scariest pivot is the one that saves your life. They're proof that corporate stability and entrepreneurial freedom aren't opposites, they're chapters. And you get to decide when to turn the page. And then there's Chimamanda. Chima started as a copywriter in content mills, churning out the kind of low paying gigs that make you wonder if your English degree was a mistake, if all those late nights in the library were just expensive detours to nowhere. But Chima discovered a passion for SEO, and in 2017, they pivoted hard. They founded Zenith Copy, an agency specializing in product led content. But here's the twist. Chima didn't quit their day job. They balanced running their agency with a senior role at Moses. They're producing blogs, podcasts, building a brand, all while holding down a full time position that would exhaust most of us on its own. Chima's story is proof that pivoting doesn't always mean burning bridges. Sometimes it means building new ones while you're still standing on the old ones, testing your weight on both, figuring out which can hold you as you grow. They've become a leading voice for Black women in MarTech, showing that you can create authority and balance, that you don't have to choose between security and passion. You can have both if you're willing to pivot strategically, if you're willing to work harder than you ever thought possible for something that's actually yours. These three women, Morgan, Lachey, and Chima, they're not unicorns. They're not superhuman. They are Black women who recognized that change was coming, whether they liked it or not. And they decided to meet it head on. They pivoted. And in doing so, they didn't just survive, they built legacies. They rewrote the rules. They proved that when the ground shifts, you don't have to fall, you can dance. But here's what I really want you to understand. These stories aren't just inspiring, they're instructional, they're blueprints. Morgan showed us that sharing your expertise publicly can transform your career in ways a resume never will. Lachey showed us that leaving stability for purpose isn't reckless, it's brave. Chima showed us that you don't have to choose between the life you have and the life you want. You can build a bridge between them. And the reason these stories matter so much, especially for Black women, is because we exist in systems that weren't built for us, systems that actively work against us. We're handed pink slips while watching mediocrity get promoted with bonuses and corner offices. We're told to wait our turn, to prove ourselves, to be grateful for crumbs while others feast. And pivoting, real pivoting, is an act of resistance. It's saying, I refuse to shrink. I refuse to stay stuck. I refuse to let your limitations become my reality. CaTyra Polland's work is about creating space for that resistance. It's about building communities where Black women can pivot without apology, where we can share our fears and our wins, where we can mentor each other through the uncertainty. Because pivoting alone is terrifying, but pivoting together, that's powerful. That's how movements start. So here's what I want you to do this week. I want you to audit one area of your career, just one. Maybe it's your LinkedIn profile that hasn't been updated since 2019. Maybe it's that side hustle idea you've been sitting on for 2 years, the one that keeps you up at night with equal parts excitement and terror. Maybe it's a skill you've been meaning to learn, but keep putting off because you're too busy, too tired, too scared. Pick one thing and then take one small pivot step. Post your first insight on LinkedIn. Join a Black entrepreneur community. Sign up for that course you've been bookmarking. Send that email you've been drafting in your head for months. One step, that's it. Not a giant leap, not a life altering decision, just one intentional move in the direction of who you're becoming. Because here's the truth CaTyra helped me see. Pivoting isn't about making giant leaps. It's about making intentional moves. It's about recognizing that the career you have today might not be the career you need tomorrow, and that's okay. It's about understanding that the skills that got you here might not be the skills that get you there, and that's okay too. It's about giving yourself permission to evolve without guilt, without shame, without the crushing weight of perfectionism that tells you if you can't do it perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. And I want you to feel something specific during this process. I want you to feel empowered, yes, but also calm. I want you to feel like you have permission to flow with change without the pressure to have it all figured out. Because the truth is, none of us have it figured out. Morgan didn't know they'd build a $6 million pipeline when they posted their first LinkedIn update. Lachey didn't know Authority Plug would take off when they left corporate. Chema didn't know they'd become a MarTech leader when they were grinding in content mills for pennies. They just knew they had to move. They had to pivot, and they trusted that the path would reveal itself as they walked it. For Black women, this is especially critical. We carry the weight of generations. We carry the dreams of ancestors who didn't have the choices we have. We carry the expectations of families who sacrificed so we could be here. And sometimes that weight makes us feel like we can't pivot, like changing direction would be betraying all of that. But here's what I've learned. Honoring that legacy doesn't mean staying stuck. It means using the freedom they fought for to build something extraordinary. It means pivoting with purpose. CaTyra reminded me that pivoting isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. It's recognizing that the only constant in life is change, and the people who thrive aren't the ones who avoid change. They're the ones who dance with it. They're the ones who pivot with grace, with intention, with the kind of courage that looks like stubbornness from the outside, but feels like survival on the inside. So, as we close, I want to challenge you, not inspire you, challenge you, because inspiration fades when the lights go down and you're back in your regular life with your regular problems. But a challenge stays with you. It nags at you. It won't let you sleep until you do something about it. Here's your challenge. Stop waiting for permission to pivot. Stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect amount of savings in your account. Stop waiting for someone to tell you you're ready. You're ready now. The ground is already shifting. The question isn't whether you'll pivot. The question is whether you'll do it intentionally or whether you'll let life pivot you. Audit that one area this week. Take that one small step. And remember, you're not alone in this. There's a whole community of Black women who are pivoting right alongside you, building empires, rewriting rules, and proving that when we move with intention, when we trust ourselves, when we pivot, the sky isn't the limit. It's just the beginning. Change is coming, it's already here. The job market is shifting, industries are evolving, the rules are being rewritten in real time, and you have a choice. You can resist it, white knuckle your way through it, pretend that if you just hold on tight enough, things will go back to normal, or you can pivot. You can lean into the discomfort, trust your expertise, build your brand, and seek your people and move with intention towards something better, something yours. The pivot isn't coming, the pivot is here. The only question left is this: what are you going to do about it? Thank you.